Right, it's 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order and announce that we have a quorum present. If you'll join me with the prayer. Lord, we thank you for this day, Lord, and we thank you for allowing us to be together and do the work of the citizens, Lord. And I pray that you would be with the families and the people affected by the flooding down in the heartland, Lord. And we pray that you would comfort them in their loss, Lord, and pray that you would forgive us of our sins and help us to do what's right. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledges. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, that brings us to council announcements. This is the time for council to make any kind of announcement, recognizing public officials or anything else.
I actually have something if it's okay.
Okay.
I'm going to read this because I don't go off the cuff real well, so bear with me real quick, please. One of the things I'm passionate about is our city park. In fact, issues at the park is one of the main reasons I ran for council. It's my belief that the condition of our park is a direct reflection of our city, and as such, I think if we all work together, we can do a much better job of maintaining and improving our park to make it something all citizens can be proud of. I've spoken to Roger over the last couple of weeks about ideas to clean up around the playground areas and install new mulch in that area. He mentioned the idea of sand and or pea gravel as an alternative, which would also work. And Roger, if you don't mind, I'll turn that to you real quick.
Sure. So one of the things we've looked at, we've tried a couple of different things in that park over the years, some rubberized material in there. We found a problem with that. The mulch that we have now breaks down. It's wood. It does cause its own kind of problems and stuff. So we started looking at alternative ways. We found something I think that will work really good, and we've talked over with David, talked over with Jerry Perkins, our public works guy. We actually have quite a bit of pea gravel. So what we're going to do is starting tomorrow, we're going to pull all of that mulch, all that old stuff out of that area. We're going to clean that all out real well. We're going to plastic coat that whole entire ground around the playground equipment. Jerry and them are then going to come back in and put pea gravel on the inside of that playground. The pea gravel will give us an opportunity. It's much more cushioning than what we have. It's less likely to cause splinters or problems like that. I will say the only kind of concern we have is I hope that the little kids don't throw a lot of it out on the ground. It's hard to mow that way. But beyond that, we really think that this is the better way to go, is to put pea gravel down there. One of the key factors, and that's really nice, is that along with what David's been working on and some of the different ways of doing things, is that we actually already have this material, so that's of zero cost to the city. That works out really good, so.
Are y'all gonna level out those little places around the equipment where the kids have ran and they?
Well, the pea gravel will actually almost work as a self-leveler. When you push that all down and everything, that will keep that level. So as you move from step to step, it will fill in those kind of gaps and keep it that way. So yes, ma'am, yeah, that will help a lot with that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're gonna plastic coat the
Yes.
surface, will that hold water when it rains, or is there gonna be provision to drain?
You should get water leaching into the soil from the laps. They're not secured. It's just an overlay. So
Okay.
you should
It's
get
mainly a
natural-
weed barrier.
Right. And going on from there, and thank you for that. I'm glad we can be able to get that done. Excuse me. Concerning the splash pad as it sits right now, it is not usable due to not being able to reclaim the water. We had explored the idea of drilling a well to operate it, but we would still have the problem of the water not being recirculated. and have also been advised that running the system with well water would cause issues with the nozzles and valves that are currently there due to the hardness of the water. I've done some research, and I had a meeting at the park with both Jerry Perkins and a contractor that installs splash pads across West Texas to see what needs to be done to bring it up to standards. To install a recirculation and filter system and make the splash pad 100% operational, our estimated cost is right at $100,000 to bring it up. As we all know, as a city, we have our financial challenges, and while those challenges continue, our situation is improving. And there is the possibility of getting a grant to help, but that takes time and usually requires some sort of matching funds. With all that being said, I'd like to propose that we start a community fundraiser with all the proceeds raised going into an account set up specifically for the purpose of improving our park. I believe that if we all pull together, we can make significant improvements and restore a sense of community and pride in our park and have the splash pad operational for next summer. With that being said, after much thought and prayer regarding this issue, my wife and I are prepared to put our money where our mouth is, and we'll be making a $10,000 contribution to this park fund. Over the next week or two, I'm going to be posting up to have a couple of community meetings. Excuse me, let me find my spot. Community meeting within the next week or so, not to look in the rearview mirror, but rather to seek positive input from the community on how we can move forward with improving the park for our children and our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Any other comments on this, or? We will close the council announcements and move to this public comment section. This time, anyone be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters or matters under litigation for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. No council discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on the agenda and posted in accordance with law. I didn't have anybody turn in a blue card, so if you have a comment, if you'll step up to the podium, state your name and address for Ms. Connie, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Lenny Branton, 922 South 4th. Right. Mr. Dixon is going to be giving us a presentation here in a little bit about ways that we can act to protect the unborn. And Clyde is a pivotal, very important thing in this. And, you know, we have a very high percentage of Republican voters in our city and in our county. People that do support saving the lives of unborn babies and mothers. I won't try to give any of Mr. Dixon's presentation, but we all know, if you know anything medically, more mothers' lives are lost through abortion than they are through giving birth. So, you know, so many of the arguments that we hear for pro-abortion are invalid. Most times a baby can be delivered rather than aborted in order to save a mother's life. And I would encourage you, please, get this to a vote as soon as possible. Because every day that we wait, some young mother is going to die that has been sex trafficked or whatever and then carried over to another state to have an abortion. There's a reason why we Texans said no abortion in our state. And I think that we need to close the doors, close the gates, so that we don't have that traffic coming through. It's something I'm very passionate about. And I, you know, very, very passionate. So please have a vote soon, Friday. If we can have a vote Friday.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Anybody else? Just step up.
My name's Jeff Schenkel, and I live at 201 Elm Street. Mr. Mayor and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Madam Secretary, Mr. City Administrator, and members of the City Council. In 1984, I enlisted in the military. The father of the conservative movement, Ronald Reagan, was president, and a devout liberal, Thomas Tip O'Neill, was Speaker of the House. Despite their ideological differences, they came together to make America great. How things have changed during the last 5 decades. Reagan and O'Neill both understood our founding fathers crafted the Constitution with one overwhelming fear: power in any hands could become tyrannical. This evening I'll discuss how democracies erode. My goal is not to point fingers, but to highlight the constitutional safeguards that we Americans have always championed. This isn't about left or right, it's about how the nation is being destroyed from within. Our founders warned us about this. Madison wrote of factions, Adams feared passion over reason. Today, whether you see the threats from cultural change or government overreach, the danger is in abandoning constitutional solutions for emotional ones. Healthy politics requires honest, spirited debate, not weaponizing the political process. When any group, whether it's Antifa or the January 6th rioters, decide the system itself is the enemy, they're rejecting the constitutional order our ancestors fought to preserve. Here's where our shared principles matter the most. The Constitution's genius is limiting any leader's power. But when any administration tries to circumvent Congress and the courts, they're evading those limits. That's not partisan, that's dangerous. The moment government starts calling citizens enemies, whether FBI labeling parents domestic terrorists or a president attacking the free press, the Constitution is under threat. Remember, Jefferson said he'd rather have newspapers without government than government without newspapers. Our nation collapses when elections become formalities, whether through gerrymandering, court packing, or weaponizing agencies. The result is the same. Regardless of any party identification or ideology, we must reject any erosion of electoral integrity, no matter which side benefits. These warnings aren't about Democrats or Republicans. They're about preserving what makes us Americans. The Constitution is not a weapon, it's our shield. And defending it requires us to recognize those threats wherever they emerge, even for those who claim to be on our side. Tip O'Neill often said, all politics is local. So if my remarks have given you a different perspective on current events, please reach out to Jody Arrington, Ted Cruz, and John Cornyn. And if they haven't, then please remember the words of Reverend Martin Niemöller about not speaking out. Don't wait until there was no one left to speak for you. Madam Secretary, I present my remarks for you to include in the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody else, if you'd come step forward here.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth York, and my address is 2301 County Road 169 in Cisco.
In Cisco?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm from Cisco. I used to say Cisco, where Hilton started his hotel chain, right? If people had a lot of time and I thought they had interest, I might tell them about the Santa Claus bank robbery. I might tell them about our concrete swimming pool, which isn't quite all concrete. But what I say now is I'm from Cisco, a sanctuary city for the unborn. I think that shows us a town that wants to look forward to protect our families, our citizens, even the unborn citizens. And that shows a city that is looking to tomorrow, to growth, to vigor, and a lively future. So I understand that tonight you'll be hearing from Mark Lee Dixon, and I encourage you to ask him lots of questions, get a good grip on the issues. The thing is that Texas is considered a pro-life state, and it is. But there's still lots of loopholes that people use to evade the law. So again, this is something you can do at a local level that will protect your citizens, those young mothers and their babies from death. So I thank you for allowing me to speak and encourage you to take up this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth. Anybody else would like to speak?
My name's Dennis Chappell, 1522 Gas House Road. I'm pastor of Fountain Gate Fellowship Church here in Clyde, just down the street. And I'm here on behalf of the Sanctuary City for Life. We're part of the Fountain Gate Abilene was a huge part of getting that ordinance passed in Abilene. And it was a battle. But I believe this doesn't have to be a battle here. I believe, Mr. Mayor, I was really impressed you opening up this meeting with a prayer. I don't know why that surprised me. Most governments don't operate like that. And so I believe that you all are people of faith. And I would ask that you would have an open mind, an open heart, and listen to Mark Lee Dixon as he presents something I believe is very vital for the city and for us as a people. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rita Davidson. I'm at 1900 Sandpiper Drive in Clyde. I am here to express my support for Mark Dixon and his words about the sanctuary city for the unborn. And I just have a few notes that I wrote as I was thinking about it. We in Clyde are abundantly blessed. We've had lots of good rains in the spring. We have pecan trees. We have great schools. And I think we also need to pay attention that God is our source of life. And our Constitution says that we all have the right to exist, to be free and to pursue happiness. Society has been fed the notion that abortion is okay. But instead, I believe we need to instill a culture of life. The unborn have personhood and a right to exist. I believe that we mock God when we say that what he created is trash and that it is valued so little that it is disposable. Some cities may say that sanctuary cities are not part of city business, but I disagree. Why are we here if not for each other? We need to be clear about who has a seat at the table and who has the right to exist in our community and who should share in its benefits. Thank you.
Rita. Anybody else want to speak during this public meeting? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment section, and that will move us to 6.1, presentation from Mark Lee Dixon, founder of Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn Initiative.
I do apologize, I did not remove the dollar sticker from the manila envelope from UPS store. Usually I do that, so small things, right? My name's Mark Lee Dixon. For about 20 years as a director with Right to Life of East Texas based in Longview. And founded this initiative called the Sanctuary City for the Unborn Initiative, and currently a part of a new organization, Right to Life across Texas. We much more beyond East Texas at this point. So there are 75 cities and 10 counties across 7 states that have passed ordinances going as far as they possibly can to prohibit abortion within their jurisdiction. Majority of those are in Texas. And so we're looking at 58 cities in Texas that passed this, 8 counties. And to start off, I just want to kind of walk through what you'll have in y'all's packet here. The first page is a letter from senators and representatives across the United States. Across the state of Texas, and it's completely in support of the consideration of these ordinances. In Texas, we actually have a specific carve-out for cities and counties completely supporting the consideration of these items that are stricter than what state law currently is. And so the provision in the Texas Heartbeat Act that supports cities passing further restrictions on abortions was actually my contribution to the Heartbeat Act. And so, one of my contributions. The Sanctuary City ordinances, which started in 2019, they started as a result of an abortion facility in Shreveport, Louisiana, looking at crossing the border to Wascom, Texas. Wascom, a city that's known for Jim's Barbecue and David Beard's Catfish Village and East Texas football, and if you know Wascom, maybe you got some speeding tickets like I did going through there on Interstate 20. But they didn't want to be known for an abortion facility. And an abortion facility in Shreveport, pulling from a 200-mile radius, was looking at crossing that border to Wascom. The mayor did not want that. Had a conversation with him. He asked me to expedite him an ordinance. This was in 2019. And I'd never been to a council meeting before. Never wrote any type of legislation before. But I found myself in a spot where I promised the mayor I would get him something in his hand. And so I worked with Senator Brian Hughes, an attorney that he introduced me to by the name of Jonathan Mitchell, to bring forth an ordinance in Wascom. Now, Jonathan Mitchell, former Solicitor General for the state of Texas, was a law clerk for Justice Scalia, served on President Trump's transition team. He later went on to, he was, of course, the architect of the Texas Heartbeat Act. He did represent President Trump in the Colorado Supreme Court ballot case. He got him back on the ballot in Colorado. And the bump stocks case, which had its origins not far from here, he actually represented them before the Supreme Court recently as well. And so he's regarded as one of the leading constitutional attorneys in America. And he had this plan to pass a measure that would actually withstand scrutiny. And that's what we saw in Wascom. Now, there were no abortion providers in Wascom, but there was the threat of one coming from the outside. And so we were beating them to the punch. Before they're even there, making sure preventative measure that Wascom was protected. Many cities followed in their footsteps, and when Lubbock realized that a Planned Parenthood was setting up shop in their community, the measure went forward there. The council did not pass the measure. In fact, that had to be by the voters, and 62 to 38%, we saw the passage of that. Planned Parenthood was performing abortions in the city of Lubbock. But when the ordinance passed, the ordinance went into effect a month later, Planned Parenthood sued right before it went into effect. And Planned Parenthood, for the first time in history, lost on a pre-viability abortion ban under Roe v. Wade. And so, massive victory. We later saw the Texas Heartbeat Act go into effect, and we saw, for the first time in history, a state law have that kind of victory. Now, I was the only private citizen that was sued in the Heartbeat Act. that went before the Supreme Court of the United States. All 9 justices agreed the case against me should be dismissed. That was actually, so those victories really show a lot about how these ordinances are enforced, which is not by law enforcement, not by fines, but through what's called a private right of action, allowing private citizens the ability to file a lawsuit for any violation of the law. In a post-Roe Texas, abortion is outlawed from the point of conception, but we're seeing all these loopholes. Now, the next page is actually an overview of how y'all's citizens here in Callahan County view the life issue, at least a part of y'all's citizens. And so the Republican Party primary, of course, the Republican vote here in Callahan County is about 90%, so it's right at 88%. And of course, during the primary, there's some numbers there, how Republicans voted on this issue. And you can see overwhelmingly, 2022 Republican Party primary, 89% voted in favor of life. Here, there's also some of the planks in the Republican Party platform, which are followed through with in this proposed ordinance before you. And then on the back of that page is a list of actions from the state legislature supporting local actions. In the very bottom of that page, you can see a list of some of the political subdivisions around here. These are just the ones in counties touching Callahan County. So we're talking about Abilene, Cisco, Eastland, Shackelford County, Gorman, Luders, Moran, Carbon, and the Metroplex of Impact. The next page is a detailed look at what problems we're currently looking at here in the state of Texas. We've got no abortion facilities, praise God, but those abortion facilities have moved across state lines to places like New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. I was just at one of the Kansas abortion facilities last week. Guys, it is horrible up there. Planned Parenthood Pittsburgh, which is the closest abortion facility to southeast and northeast Texas. I was at that one specifically. And, you know, I was seeing people from League City and the Houston area up there at that abortion facility, having driven over 10 hours for abortions at that facility. The closest abortion facility to here is actually Wichita, Kansas. There's 3 of them. They're doing abortions up to 22 weeks. 22 weeks, there's babies in the NICU that are that age. And we're seeing these lives lost. The Planned Parenthood in Wichita, Kansas, we found out that Planned Parenthood, the dead babies there are actually being picked up from a company out of Grand Prairie in Amarillo in Houston called Biocycle Encore Technology. What they do is they pick up those mangled dead babies up to 22 weeks at that facility in Wichita, Kansas. And they bring those remains back into the state of Texas. And they go into what's called an autoclave. The contents are sterilized and then further mutilated through a shredder and then compacted and ending up in a local landfill. Now, the state of Texas, back in 2018, 2017, passed a measure saying that unborn human remains had to properly be treated, just like any other dead human remains, either by Christian burial or cremation. Well, Biocycle Encore Technology is not a medical facility within the state of Texas. They're a waste management company in the state of Texas that's going out of the state, picking up dead remains and bringing them back into the states. This ordinance, if passed, would address that issue and saying, look, those companies can, of course, pick up medical waste from all over the place and drive it through the city. But if they're picking up from an abortion facility, then don't drive through here. And certainly don't take any of those remains to any of the landfills in this area and use our roads for that. So the abortion-inducing drugs is another problem. Abortion-inducing drugs, it's outlawed in the state of Texas, but there's a massive loophole. These drugs, we're finding that 11% of the women who take these drugs being mailed from out of state by groups like Aid Access and Mayday Health, 11% of women who take these drugs end up in the emergency room. 11%. And so, with a severe life-threatening situation, the abortion trafficking picture that we're facing, there's a picture on here, advertisement from an abortion facility that was in San Antonio that moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And of course, it says, Texas teens, if you're under 18 and seeking an abortion, there's funding available. Abortion care and all travel and expenses are free, compassionate, kind, and discreet staff. No parental consent is needed in Albuquerque or Illinois. There are groups like the Lilith Fund, named after a demon that preys on women and children, the FIA Center, Jane's Due Process, that are helping minors get abortions across state lines. They're targeting Texas teens. And I've seen some of the pamphlets, I've seen some of the conference calls and the advice they give. They're actually encouraging minors to tell their parents, well, can I go to a friend's house for the weekend? And of course, the parent, knowing that their child has been so good doing their chores and everything, says sure, not knowing that their child is actually not going to a friend's house, but being taken by these abortion trafficking groups across state lines without parental consent. These ordinances seek to close these loopholes, to do everything that we possibly can to protect innocent life, the pregnant mothers and their unborn children. I have a one-pager here about how these ordinances are written in line with state law and with Supreme Court ruling regarding medical emergencies. These ordinances are solid on that subject. Got a letter here, opinion from Attorney General Paxton's office that addresses the authority that cities have, political subdivisions have in this measure. This is from when Planned Parenthood sued the city of Lubbock. A lot of the arguments that Planned Parenthood brings up here are arguments that I'm hearing people from Texas Municipal League and different law firms across the state of Texas still make. And a lot of times I'll ask them, have you read the opinion from Attorney General Paxton's office? And it's interesting how some attorneys just do not want to look at this opinion. But I do have a letter here as well from Attorney Jonathan F. Mitchell, the attorney that I mentioned who represented President Trump in the Colorado Supreme Court ballot case. He is the co-author of this proposed ordinance for Clyde. We did this one the same way that we do any other city ordinance. And so all the ordinances that just recently passed in Shackelford County and Moran and Luders, this is identical to. And a lot of the provisions that, of course, now some of the cities surrounding you guys, like Abilene and Cisco, a little bit older when they passed that, when Roe v. Wade was actually still, the ordinance was put forth when Roe v. Wade was still on the books. And so it is different in the sense that you don't have mention of Roe v. Wade still being on the books in these, so it's more cleaner and to the point. But essentially the same thing. Now, of course, back in Abilene and Cisco's day, we didn't know what was going on with the waste management situation. And so that's one thing that you have in this one that's not in Abilene's or Cisco's or Eastland, which is the provision that addresses those fetal remains. But this is something that many other cities and counties are looking at. In fact, there are several cities and counties that surrounding you guys that are planning on getting on the agenda this month and next month. And so this is a good thing. It's Amos 5:15, which is what got me into this to begin with, says to hate evil, love good, and establish justice within the city gates. And perhaps the Lord, the God of hosts, be gracious in the remnant of Joseph. When we hear about a problem, we can't just ignore it. The problems that we are facing in a post-row Texas, it's this problem of abortion-inducing drugs coming into our communities. It's abortion trafficking going through our communities, and these fetal remains coming back this way. One last thing I'll mention. I've got to have a front row seat at the success of seeing how the city of Wascom can pave the way to a statewide abortion ban and the Texas Heartbeat Act. I've seen the front row seat of how these laws survive challenges. We saw the city of Lubbock, when they were sued, that was the last city to be sued over a sanctuary city ordinance in the state of Texas. That was May of 2021. And they were city number 24 in Texas to pass an ordinance. Now we're at 58 cities in Texas to have passed ordinances. When we saw the abortion facilities flee the state of Texas after Roe v. Wade was overturned, they were targeting southeastern New Mexico. And Whole Women's Health, one of the most litigation-happy abortion facilities in the nation, they set up shop in Hobbs, New Mexico, and they were looking at Clovis as well. We introduced an ordinance in Hobbs, New Mexico that was different from what we did in Texas because we had to base things on New Mexico law. And we used some federal statutes passed in 1873 known as the Comstock Act. Prohibits the mailing and receiving of abortion-inducing drugs and abortion paraphernalia. When we introduced that ordinance, that abortion facility just 4 miles from the Texas-New Mexico border ended up relocating 5 hours away to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we were successful in saving southeastern New Mexico. Roger Severino with the Heritage Foundation soon reached out to me and my attorney, Jonathan Mitchell, and Roger Severino said, I love what y'all are doing in southeastern New Mexico. And from there, they decided, he mentioned that he wanted to work in what we did in southeastern New Mexico to their plans for the next administration for the transition plan known as Project 2025. And in doing that, of course, there are people within this current administration that want to see these federal statutes enforced at every level of government. These federal statutes, known as the Comstock Act, if enforced, would shut down abortion in all 50 states in America. The end of abortion really is a possibility. It doesn't matter if the state is California or New York. These federal statutes trump all state laws and state constitutions. And so, coming before you today, I'm not coming before you as a guy with pipe dreams. I'm coming before you as someone who has seen what no one else thought was possible. We saw abortion outlawed completely in Lubbock, Texas, while Roe v. Wade was on the books. We saw a pre-viability abortion ban go into effect that shut down the abortion industry, and we've seen the facilities flee the state of Texas. We believe that we can see the end of abortion in the next 4 to 12 years if everyone does their part. There's a lot of cities and a lot of counties, not just in Texas, but in other states, that are wanting to move forward versions of this ordinance that will work in their states. The federal statutes I mentioned are a part of this ordinance before you. And that letter that had previously shown, if this ordinance were to be passed and there were any litigation that came as a result. Now, we're not expecting litigation. There are many cities. Lubbock County passed virtually the same measure in October of 2023, and they've seen no litigation over this measure. Munster, Texas, Big Sandy, Texas, Ovilla, Texas, lots of cities all across, and counties all across the state. But if there was litigation, my attorney, Jonathan Mitchell, would be willing to represent the city at no cost to the city and taxpayers. And so with that, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions that y'all might have.
I do have a couple of questions, so bear with me if you don't mind. The way I understand it is this ordinance, with this ordinance, there's no enforcement arm by local law enforcement, local government, right?
Right.
Okay. So the only enforcement is a private citizen can sue basically another private citizen?
Well, a private citizen can file a lawsuit against someone who's violating the ordinance,
Okay.
which would most likely be the abortion facility,
Right.
even if the abortion facility, of course, is in Wichita, Kansas. And so just a brief example would be, say you're the father of an unborn child. You find out that your baby's mama is going to Wichita, Kansas for an abortion at the Planned Parenthood. Because this ordinance, if this ordinance was passed, then that father of the unborn child could call that abortion facility and have a shot at that appointment being canceled and his child being saved.
So under Texas state law now, would that father not have the same rights at this moment?
So, under a wrongful death suit, he would, but this would give more ability and standing. What this does is give near universal standing, so anyone. A lot of people that I've counseled, sometimes the father is not. Sometimes fathers are not involved in life. Sometimes the pregnant mother is being taken and she's being pressured even by her parents. This would allow a situation where, say, a minister from Clyde could, on behalf of that pregnant mother and that unborn child, step in and try to take action by threatening a lawsuit against that abortion facility in Wichita. And under state law, he can't do that right now.
That's
But
where I'm getting.
this is the near universal standing that gives him. And so if it's a father of the unborn child, he has a little bit more ability, but even then, it has to be a specific situation to merit that. And it'd be a wrongful death lawsuit, but it gets a little hairy. But this would give near universal standing and would give a greater chance of victory.
Thank you for answering that. The other question I had, what would the main difference be between the sanctuary city ordinance or the safe haven for the unborn?
Okay, so there's confusing language out there at times. So when people say safe haven, sometimes people are talking about safe haven baby box that fire departments install. And now some cities and counties have opted to, instead of calling their city ordinance, instead of being sanctuary city for the unborn, some have said we're a safe haven for the unborn. Or, I even tell people if they want to, they could just, say a sanctuary for the unborn. Now, collectively, when you look at all the cities, we say sanctuary cities for the unborn on our side. We say there's 75 cities have done this. That doesn't mean every single one of them use this exact language. The majority of them have. But here in Texas, you've got Big Spring, Big Sandy, Gilmer, Munster, and Jack County, and I don't know if I'm missing one, but those all did the safe haven language. And of course, if this was something where y'all said, we like this idea, we want to do this, we want to not use the phrase sanctuary city, we want to use the phrase safe haven, then of course, 100%, my attorney would still back that, all the way.
Basically, it's the same ordinance, just
Yeah.
different title.
Whatever we call it.
Right.
In the whole discussion, when we started this language, Charlie Daniels actually is the one that, I think I was watching Fox News or some article, and Charlie Daniels said, we need to see sanctuaries for the unborn, not for illegal immigrants. And, that is part of the idea. The phrase sanctuary is a good thing. We all like sanctuary. In fact, on Sundays, where do we go? We go into a sanctuary for worship. And the idea, the connotation, of course, we want a safe place for unborn children and their moms, right? And so whatever it's called, that can be changed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I will ask you one, I think you had mentioned about, we got the I-20 corridor here. So say one of our policemen does stop them. I mean, I know you said something about us not really enforcing it, but, that's one thing that we're trying to do is prevent the abortion to begin with. That's why the wrongful death deal, that's great after the fact, but you want to prevent it.
Exactly.
So, but back to my question, if police stop someone, they're on their way to Albuquerque or Wichita, Kansas, what can they do to stop that?
And, this ordinance, the way it's written, is very clear that no law enforcement enforces this, nor can they, based on this ordinance. But there are things that can be done. I've got people that are planning on being outside of some of these abortion facilities every single day here in the near future. And there are people out there right now that are from that area. And Texas is working with, people in Kansas who are passionate about this life issue. Sometimes information is everything. If the city of Clyde would like to share information with some of our people, if y'all were to come across a situation, I would be glad to take a call from any officer with intel about if they just so happen to stumble across the information, because that is something that information could be used to potentially save a life there in Wichita, Kansas, or Pittsburgh, Kansas, or any of the other places. People from here still are going to New Mexico and Colorado for abortions, and sometimes even Illinois. And so it is wild. Some of that is based on the appointment schedules. But, people don't realize just the smallest amount of information at times. When I was outside the Planned Parenthood facility in Pittsburgh just this last week, I was talking to that father, one of the fathers out there, and I said, look, I'm from East Texas, and his ears perked up because he didn't expect to run into a Texan in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And we ended up getting into a conversation. It was a little heated at first, but then, things calmed down. But with this information, we can save lives, and in the unfortunate circumstance that the abortion goes forward, there's still counseling work that we can provide to the mother of that deceased unborn child. And, this is not about after the fact. This is not just about preventative. This is the whole 9 yards, and that is why, the state of Texas is leading the way in providing resources for women who find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. In the 5th finding of the ordinance, the biggest finding that we have, talks about the Thriving Texas Family Program. And we have set aside $200 million to help women who find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. And that it's not just on, the prenatal side of things, it's post-birth help as well. And that lays it out. We even have, so I always joke about this, but in this ordinance, we have links to websites that that people can go to. And, we probably don't have a lot of web links and a lot of ordinances out there in Texas, but the websites listed here are texaspregnancy.org and the Pregnancy Network, which when people go to those sites will tell them whatever the closest pregnancy center is that's providing these services free of charge to them. And so, and there are some women who, from this area, that maybe they will go to the Open Door in Cisco, or maybe they'll go to Abilene, or maybe they say, I want to go a couple hours away to a city where no one knows me to get pregnancy help. And these websites will help them in that, no cost to them. So,
All right. No other questions? Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Do thank you for your time, for sure.
Okay, that will move us to our consent agenda. Consider and act upon approving the minutes from the regular meeting of June 10th, 2025, as presented. Entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Councilman Mann, second by Councilman White. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moves us to our public hearing. We're gonna 8.1, hold a public hearing regarding a proposed amendment to the 2021 International Building Code to require permits for roofing work. All right. Anybody want to speak during this public hearing on this proposed amendments to the building code?
William Meyer, 513 Reed Street. In regards to this, is it in minor repairs? Is it a total re-roofing? What exactly is it that you're wanting to propose?
This is just, that's very good, but y'all can't, that's gonna be discussed in the regular agenda.
So where is that regular agenda?
It's in 9.2 and 9.3.
So I don't have access to that. Where is that?
Mainly, it'll be coming up here in a few minutes, and at which point then you can say and ask all these
So where
questions.
is that documentation that?
On our website, it's
Yeah,
posted
it's-
outside, I put it out last Thursday. All this is listed, but here's the deal. This is just a public hearing for you to get up and say what you want to say, and then they can communicate with you and answer your questions once the agenda item is there. This item is going to be on the regular agenda. It's just right down.
So if you're requesting for a permit for roof repairs, what happens when you have a elderly fixed income widow who is needing just minor repairs, such as she's got a few leaks, or she has a minor hail damage, and she doesn't have the money to pay for a professional roofing company to come out, so she asks her pastors to come out and patch a few holes. Or you have a company that comes out and mounts an antenna on your roof, and they pull it down after service, and then you're left with holes in your own roof, and you're able-bodied, so do you have to pull a permit for that? I don't feel that a permit for minor improvements would be warranted.
Because it's coming up.
But the idea of an idea for a permit for minor repairs, or even repairs that are not a complete removal or a complete re-shingling or even a complete re-underlayment, I believe is absurd. That being said, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would want to speak during this public hearing?
Yeah, Bo Davidson, 322 Rusk Street. And I just want to back kind of what he said on that. I'm against the idea of, requiring just minor repairs, having to get a permit, go through that whole process, with the contractor and everything to do, patchwork, stuff like that. I mean, I understand a full reshingling, putting up all the plywood under there, all that. Just minor stuff. Just backing up what he said on that. I guess
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else?
My name's Jeremy Kirk, I'm pastor at First Assembly here. And like they said, as a pastor, a lot of times we get requests for help. I have actually fixed roofs in this town. Of course, growing up, my father owned and ran a roofing company, so I have the experience, I have the knowledge. But as a concern is I don't want to go out and have to, try to figure out how to pull a permit for somebody who can't even afford the work. A lot of times, the last roof repair we did come out of our own pockets. Paid for the material, paid for everything, and did the repair. It wasn't a big, it was just a couple hours fixing, straightening things up. And as I said, I have experience on the roofing construction side of the business. I believe the intent should probably be for, like they said, complete roofing, and it really should be for the contractors to prevent and protect the homeowners. Thank you for your time.
Jeremy, what was your last name?
Kirk, K-I-R-K,
And your address?
3850 Genesis Lane, Abilene.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, anybody else speaking in this public hearing? Okay, if not, we will close the public hearing. We'll move us to our regular agenda, 9.1. Consider with possible action adopting a resolution of the City of Clyde approving submission of the grant application for the DJ Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program to the Office of the Governor for the Radio Upgrade Program.
As you can see, we're gonna have Chief Barnes speak on this. Go ahead, Chief.
Hello, thank you very much. Hey, late last year, we entered into a grant application process with the local council of governments, and grants are very extensive and take a lot of time. And this request tonight is simply going to close up this grant and help us move forward. The request that I made was for new radios for our police department. Our radios that we're using today are from 2006, and they're extremely outdated, and this is just what we have. And we really are trying our best to upgrade. We have the upgraded servers that make the radios work. We need to upgrade the equipment to communicate with that. So the only way to do that is not to come to you and ask you for $50,000. The way to do that is to potentially go out for grants. So the request that I made was for $47,000. The grant process is a competitive grant with 19 different counties, and we ranked within the schedule that allowed us to get some money. So even though we didn't get what I requested, we did get a grand total of, we potentially are gonna get, depending on how things go, a grand total of approximately $24,000. That's gonna help us fulfill some of our grant. It is very important that whenever we started this grant application process, there was understanding from the get-go, there was a zero matching funds from the city. There was never any intention to have any matching funds to this. We just shot for the moon and wound up in the stars. So that's where we're at today. And this resolution that I'm asking you guys to approve Mayor McGuire to sign for us today is simply going to be the end of our grant process. As if this is approved, I will send it off and get it to the governor's office and see what will happen. So just before you ask, we will not find out about this until September. The grant was due like Valentine's Day, and we won't even hear about this till September, and we don't even anticipate the funds being available until December. What the resolution literally says is, whatever money we do get, you're gonna use in accordance with the grant. That's all literally it says. And before I close up my speech, I wanna point out my muscle for the day, Miss Irene Lawrence from COG. She helped me tremendously with this grant. Grants are very, very intensive, so I do appreciate Miss Irene here today and her assistance. Thank you all. Any questions that I can answer?
Thank you, you did well.
It's all here, looks good.
We shall see.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so any questions for the chief on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, motion by Councilman Mann, second by Councilman Rector. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Excuse me. That moves us to 9.2, consider and act upon an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, amending Chapter 3, Building Regulations by adding Article 3.07, Contractor Registration, requiring contractors working within the city to register with the city, providing a penalty, amending Chapter FS fee schedule to add a fee for said registration, providing a repealer and severability clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna abstain from this one and step out.
Okay,
I am currently roofing contractor.
thank you.
All right, Joe, I guess you want me to take over there. Council, what this does is, what we're basically proposing is that in order to kind of make sure that we are either tracking and/or making sure that contractors who come into the city and work and continue to do work, that they're registered, they're insured, that it's not some sort of company that's gonna come in and take advantage, or just they're here and it's gonna cause a problem. What this is it's a very nominal fee of $25 to register to be, to be contractor. Again, that allows us that opportunity to know who is working within the city limits, to know who is doing this contract labor, and that $25 gets that registration for the year. The thing you need to know is it's not year as in if you get it on March 31st, it's good till next March. It is good until December 31st of each year, period. So if you get it in November for $25, come December 31st, it's gonna end. January, you're gonna need it again. Again, this is not, it's not a financial thing. Count, yeah. Yeah, so it's not a financial thing where we're trying to, keep anybody from doing business in the city. We want business in the city. We want reputable, we want, businesses that we're able to verify, justify. We think that provides a better service for our citizens.
Okay, and this is contractors of any kind, whether it's roofing, fencing.
Yeah, David stepped out because of the roofing part of it, but this is all contractors. Any contract service, they come in electrical, plumbing, anybody that comes in to do work, to build a house, build residence, commercial, they're gonna have to come to the city and register with the city that we know that they're here.
This is just another way that we can help protect the citizens by getting contractors to come in that are reputable, and they're not gonna come in and charge you some money and then scoot out of town and you're left high and dry. This is just another way we can kind of protect you guys.
That is our goal, yes.
And when you say register with the city, is that registering, do they come here to do that,
They'll come to City Hall, they will file out, we will, whatever forms we have that they will fill out, pay that $25 registration fee, then they'll be kept on file. If we have any point, somewhere down the line where it's, somebody questions their qualifications for being there, or somebody, says that, we can go back in and show, hey, no, they are, they're registered with us, we verified that they're legitimate in doing this business, and, again, it's a small step, but it's one of the very few we can take to kind of create that trust in the contractors and the community to keep things running smoothly, hopefully. As Councilman Rector said, to kind of eliminate any kind of, hopefully, negative contact with them.
What requirements are there? I mean, are we asking them to provide proof of insurance?
Actually, yeah,
or-
there's, you'll see on here in our paperwork that we have there, the applicant, it'll show you that, let me see which number that is. I'm having to read through it again. That's not, I'd already highlighted a different area.
Section 3.07003, application for registration. Did that have that? The name, the employees, the license.
Yeah, it says a copy of the applicant's license issued
Proof
by
of
the appropriate
insurance.
state board or
Proof of
agency.
liability insurance.
Yeah, with authority to issue licenses for that particular trade. The name of all employees of the applicant authorized to obtain those permits. And then the complete name, mailing address, telephone number of the applicant, and if the applicant's is a firm, corporation, or business entity, the name and private mailing address of a principal of the firm, corporation, or business entity who is authorized to bind the firm, corporation, or business entity into legal agreements. Those are what you're asking for, Mayor, I believe.
So a homeowner, like Will was saying a little while ago, if something happens to my roof, so does the citizen have to go hire a contractor to come fix my roof, or can I fix it myself, being the homeowner?
No, you can fix that yourself. Terry, our ordinances as far as, again, myself, you,
Yeah.
all of us, anything that we're doing on our residence in order to maintain that, that's not what we're talking about here at all. This is strictly contract coming in to build a home, replace an entire roof, put in a plumbing, pour a concrete foundation. Those are the types of things we're talking about. And we'll go even further into what y'all were asking about on the roofing. But yes, this has nothing to do with the resident being able to repair or take care of their own personal property. This has nothing to do with that. No, so Bo's not gonna have to come in and file $25, register himself so that he can work on his front porch. It's not, that's not what we're talking about. Yes, sir.
I have a question. I don't think I've ever publicly told this story, but growing up, poor family. And I will never forget, really bad hailstorm, completely destroyed our roof. And First Baptist Church Longview ended up, they had a group that came out and fixed the roof. And we were just so grateful for that. Because we couldn't afford that. And so, hearing some of the, resonates with me, that whole idea of a church coming in and helping to fix someone's roof who can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so, would this ordinance, if there was a church that they're, bringing a group, would this prevent them from helping meet that need?
It's a great question. The way we have this, as far as the registration required, it actually states that, that somebody, a company, a firm, that is in the business of contracting services. So that would not fall under that contracting services. Now, again, we go back to a time when I wish it was more like that, when neighbors took care of neighbors and churches were able to be the ones that took care of, anybody in town, not just their parishioners. But yeah, this is geared towards what happens for contractors, people who, this is their job, this is what they do. And if they're going to do that as a company, as a business, as a firm, then we want them registered with us. So, but it's a great question and very good, thank you for that, yeah.
And I'm encouraged that there's people in this room who are doing some amazing work.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being a church with hands and
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Where would these fees be going once the certificate is being filed and approved by the city? Where is it going into the general fund?
This would
Is
go
it
into our
already-
general fund, yes.
And that leads me to my next question.
Okay.
Who's gonna be enforcing this? I mean.
That would still be our code enforcement. That would fall under code enforcement. If this was adopted and enacted this way, it would be an ordinance that would fall under code enforcement, enforcing those ordinances, so.
And as far as new construction, they're already pulling building permits and all that.
Sure, we'll still have to.
This covers builder? Does it cover all his contractors, subcontractors that he brings in? How's?
I think he has to list his employees under him.
Yeah, it does. But it's, I mean, what is your question? Does your question go back to who all's listed when he registers?
Right,
Or
right.
the $25? What is your?
No, I mean, obviously they're already pulling, you know, you've got your contractors and then you got your subcontractors when you're building new construction. You know, you got your foundation that comes in, you've got masonry, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Does the builder pull be the one that registers, or does?
I see your question. So, no, it wouldn't be one $25 registration fee for Roger Brown, contractor, and then everybody then comes in subcontracts under me, is covered under that. If then Danny White is the concrete guy, but he's a contractor, Danny White Construction or whatever, will have to go in there and have that registration on file too. So no, he won't fall under the just one contractor. If you're a contractor, you're subcontracting your service to a contractor, but you're still a contractor. So you know, and we're using that word contractor like it encompasses all of it. It's not, it's business, entity, the person that's performing that for that particular reason of a business, they would have to do that. And then everybody that works for them under that, so.
Okay.
Paul, do you understand what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
That each contractor has to register,
Yeah.
no matter if they're subbing out for a different job or whatever?
So
Right.
Terry, you're gonna go and,
What's that?
you're gonna go and oversee, you're gonna go to each site.
We already do, yeah, every day.
Yes, sir.
Lonnie Burleson, I just moved here at 1121 Shaney Lane. I do contract work. As a contractor who has subs under him, the contractor is responsible for paying for permits, for electrical, plumbing, all those. It's up to them. That's what a contractor essentially means. We general contract things, and I'm responsible for taking care of all those things under a sub. So I don't think your subs need to be necessarily registered with the city. If something goes on with that project with one of those subs, you ultimately hold the contractor responsible. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay, before I answer that, yes, sir.
So, Troy Ward, 526 Fairmont. I'm a contractor, roofing contractor in Abilene. I agree with what he's saying. The way that it's broke down, we do 90% of our business in Abilene area, and we're under their laws and rules. It also goes with Sweetwater, Sea City, Coleman, Brownwood, that they have a individual contractor, and they will, you know, they do ask for monetary donation for your insurance, so on and so forth, annually. On some don't. But when you do a contractor as a home builder contractor or a building contractor, that is a completely separate entity and a completely separate value. He's responsible for everybody under him. But if you're going to do a repair or a remodel and you're hiring that one subcontractor, he's got to do his deed and he's got to be in it. Now, if I'm Joe Blow and I'm going to build all these houses over here, I'm that contractor. Now I have to have a contractor's setup over here, which will encompass everything in the umbrella of it. As an individual replacement, repair, so on and so forth, installer, you would have your own to do your own thing. And that's where he's saying that, I believe that's where you're going with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so, even if you're a contractor, irregardless of a plumber, concrete guy, whatever, and you're going to work for Joe Blow over here who's building all these houses, I'm under his umbrella, and his umbrella is gonna have to encompass the whole project. City of Abilene, I can't remember what their contract or their permit fees are, but it's pretty substantial. It's $1,000+ per project. To where a individual roofer or plumber or whatever is like 65, a flat money rate. So you can see the difference. If that makes sense.
So if you're working for a house builder.
Correct.
And come in and you're the roofer.
Correct.
You don't have to have that.
I do not have to pull a permit.
Because you're under him.
I'm under his umbrella.
But if a hailstorm comes through here and you go around town
Then
and
I'd have to have mine.
redo 20 roofs.
Correct.
You've gotta have.
Yes, sir, correct, 100%.
That's what.
No, and that goes across the board throughout.
And to that degree, then perfectly, because that's exactly for both of what y'all said. You're right. So you're the general contractor. You come in. You are now responsible for all the subcontractors under you.
That is correct.
It's your job now to make sure that they all have their particular license and whatever that is.
That's correct.
One of those licenses that you're going to now be required to make sure that these guys have is registered with the city of Clyde if this passes, simply because a subcontractor that you use probably is not just you're the only time he's being used. If he is, then he's your employee and he will be covered under your $25. But now, if I'm a subcontractor for either one of y'all, I'm going to have to be registered in the city before I can then come in and fall under your umbrella. See what I'm saying?
You make a good point, Roger, but I think you're looking at backwards.
Because standard principles in
Because
construction is.
I'm a roofer. I am a roofer. I subcontract under Weathersby Roofing.
Yeah.
I'm a part owner of me and my father's company.
And we
Little Bar
appreciate the
Contractors.
work you've done for us,
So
yes.
we've done work. We are responsible for our roofers and our job that we perform.
Yes.
I'm not gonna hire a plumber to come in and do a plumbing job when I'm a roofer.
Right.
So I don't.
Great, I appreciate you being honorable.
You see what I'm saying?
But I now have to, or the council now has to look out for somebody less honorable than you.
Well, I understand that. No, I understand that.
So
But you
then we
can't-
have to apply it across the board here.
Yeah, now if
Which
you're-
means that it affects those who would do everything right, everything by the book. We've got no problem with that. That's not who we're worried about.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I just wanna make sure that you don't word it in there, in the wording, that whoever is the contractor is the contractor of everything and is responsible for everybody in between, and also that the subcontractors have to go in and take care of all that also, if there's not. If that person, if they're gonna do something of that nature, needs to go over to this contractor, building contractor, who has his umbrella.
Yeah.
That's where you need to take those two apart. You have an individual subcontractor who does one service. And then you have a contractor who produces multiple services.
I understand. When you say that we need to take those two apart,
Yes.
we haven't connected those two.
I just wanna make sure that y'all don't word
that's
that.
great, that's a great question on y'all's part, but y'all have connected those two.
Yeah.
We're saying that a contractor of any of that will be required if that's what council passed. Now I'm just telling you what
No,
has
I
been
got you,
discussed.
I got you.
So if that's what's passed, we're saying that anybody that is in the business of doing that
Mm-hmm.
will have to be registered with the city before they will be able to operate in that regard. Now, that goes back to you being the general contractor and you making sure, because, and again, it goes back to being a legitimate deal. You're not gonna have somebody that's not that way, so this isn't
Yeah.
that part of it.
Yeah.
We just wanna make sure that for everything else, and I'm quite sure my code enforcement guy would like to speak now, yes.
So read number 2 on page 59 says general contractor, meaning any person, firm, corporation, or business entity engaged in the business of general contracting, construction management, or coordination of subcontractor services related to, so that defines general contractor. And then, letter B underneath .02 says, shall be unlawful for any general contractor to engage in the business of general contracting, construction management, or coordination of subcontractor services related to the construction, alteration, addition, renovation, residential, commercial building within the city unless such general contractor is the holder of a valid registration with the city.
Okay.
That's-
I'm not sure of the question.
It's not a question, it's a statement. I'm saying that this, what I was saying about subcontractors having to have a permit, this here says that they're underneath the general contractor.
He's speaking for all the subcontractors instead of having to go through each
That's
subcontractor
what
and
this
say you've
says.
got to
I think
register.
that's what you're speaking to.
Yeah.
And that's what I was asking.
He's covering everybody underneath him.
Yeah, as a building contractor, you have an umbrella.
Right.
As an individual contractor, doing an individual job, you'd have your own.
Yes.
That's the way I read it. I don't know, I mean.
No, well, I mean, there's a couple of things here. You're reading number 2, and that's great. Also read 1 and 3, because both, now you're talking about definitions of terms. But at this point, because there's been some very great and valid points raised. And again, this is one of those things where council puts this out there, so it's brought to somebody's attention, we want to start working on it. Y'all brought up great points that we have not either thought of or nobody's brought it to, so thank y'all for that. So it would be my suggestion to council at this point to not take action on this item, and let's research this further. Let's talk, if you guys have got, information, then let's move this to a different time. Let's not take action on this tonight. Let's go further into this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that says this has to be done tonight. So that would be my suggestion to council, is to let this go for this evening.
Okay, so I guess with that, we will take a motion to approve or deny this.
I'd like to make a motion.
We don't,
Table
no,
this.
No,
we
we're
don't,
not
you
doing that.
can't table it, but
No,
you
we're not.
can deny this as it's written, that's no problem. We just bring it back next month,
So-
rewritten to a better standard, but
So this-
tabling is a different
Got it.
rule, Robert's Rule of
So
Order.
this dies with lack of motion. So,
Well,
Did somebody make a motion?
Make the motion.
yeah,
we gotta make a motion.
you have to call for it. If
I
nobody
did, I called
makes
for
it,
it, and
you then tried to make one that we had to address. So now you can ask again,
so,
or somebody may want to deny this, and that closes it out and allows us to start over on it.
okay. So, I would entertain a motion to approve or deny this ordinance. Okay, it dies with lack of motion. So that moves us to 9.3. Consider and act on an ordinance amending section 3.01.003 building and residential codes adopted to adopt a local amendment to the International Building Code to require permits for roofing work and amending the fee schedule to adopt fees for said permits. Mr. Brown.
Well, I'm almost afraid to say anything now.
Why not?
So actually, what on this part of it now, this was to go to the fact of, and we generally want to address this part. So this is to prevent what our biggest concern here is, you see it all the time. We have roofing companies or so-called roofing companies that come in after a big windstorm or something, and that's to take nothing away from legitimate companies who do great work. But at this time, we want to make sure, this goes back to the same thing, that we have qualified people doing these types of roofing jobs, doing these replacements, repairs, and it allows us to, if passed, would allow us to prevent anyone who, let me say, subpar for that job. We're trying to figure out how to best take care of our citizens, how to best look out for our citizens, especially, as some of our churches said, the ones who obviously can't do for themselves in that regard. This is something that we looked at that we felt might work in that regard. We feel this would provide protection and a better quality of service for our citizens, so. What? Somebody, hey, anybody, y'all wanna ask questions, now's the time.
What is the current fee schedule?
The current fee schedule right now is off of a calculator. It goes off the price and the size of the job. This will allow that to be a one price for residents and a one price for commercial, which is uniform with everybody else in the area.
Troy, you own, or you work for a roofing company, and that is your job. Have you looked at this ordinance?
I haven't looked and read the ordinance, but I know what's been happening as far as what we've been getting charged to do.
Yes.
And it's completely out of character of the rest of the towns around here. The way it sets up right now, if you two gentlemen have the exact same house, you get a 3-tab roof, which is the plain Jane bottom of the line shingle, and you go for the class 4 high profile stone coated steel, big deal. He's gonna pay way more than you are, but he's also gonna have to pay way more in permits. Okay? Hey man, I got my job done, didn't have to worry about paying a permit because that's already included in our price. Because universally around let's say the neighborhood of the big country that we serve, everybody's around $60 a square, or $60 to $65 a permit for a re-roof, okay? Also said in that is that it's only, if it's under 5 squares, it's considered a repair, and you don't have to do a permit. You don't have to pull a permit for a roofing company to do so. But what is not fair to public or to the roofer is that somebody's gotta eat that additional charge for the big fancy roof that might be it could be $1,000, it could be $400, it could be, whatever, and yours could be $75. So why has he gotta pay all that extra for permitting when you have the exact same amount of squares per diem of the roof and take the same amount of time to put it on? You see what I'm saying? So in that regards, what Terry and them are suggesting, yes, a universal across the board price is great. So like I said, City of Abilene, $65. You pay it online, you do a $2 processing fee online with it, you're done out the door. When I'm done, I fill out a voucher for CO detectors because we do touch the gas caps on the top. So we have to make sure that there's a CO detector inside the home now, and that the pipes, made sure the pipes are still attached properly. No, I'm not a plumber, that's the way they wrote it, so that's what we have to do. I sign a voucher, customer signs a voucher that's been checked, been done. City doesn't have to go interior to check that. They come by, check the roof, you're good, you pass, there you go. It's a quick, easy deal, and it's, like I said, $65 across the board, $2 charge fee on the credit card use. That's great. What the side note of the bad side of it was, like I was saying, you two gentlemen have the exact same size house, exact same squares, the exact same type of labor, but he's got a higher price. When you're using the calculator formula, he's gotta pay more. It doesn't add up. It's the same squares, but the price value of the job is so much greater, he's gotta pay that much more for a permit now, as it stands. And across the board, it should be, and going back to the other deal, paying the fees for your annual fee for being part of the city, hey, that's great. We're good for that.
So who eats the extra cost?
We do. So we have it as
The city has, you have to pay it after.
Well, right now, we actually lose that money as the customer, unless, and that's another thing to add to your point. When we go in and say, okay, here's my bid, I'm gonna do your job for $10,000. Great, we've signed a contract. We're under contract with each other. I come up here to the city and they say, well, it's gonna be $350 for a permit. Okay, now I wanna come back to you and say, I need another $350 so you can give me a permit, I can get a permit to do your roof. Cause I'm not gonna pay for it. That doesn't fly. And it doesn't work that well. We've already integrated, like I said, for Abilene area, the surrounding area, the permit fees of $60 a square. That's already incorporated in our cost, we're good with it.
For residential?
For residential, yes ma'am. We also, when you do commercial, there's upgraded fee for that. The commercial side of it, it's like $125. I wish Dave was in here, he could help me out on that. But,
Well,
yes.
this ordinance says 65 for residential and
For a
100
housing
for
unit and
commercial.
100 for commercial.
Yeah, that's about right. I
So
mean,
that's
like-
in line with all the
Yes.
other communities
Yes,
around
ma'am.
us.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, that was my question.
From what I hear, this will help simplify, just make it.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going from a calculated value to a flat rate.
It's actually gonna save money.
Yeah.
I've never heard of,
A
I've been a
calculated.
roof company my whole life, never even heard of a percentage for a permit.
Yeah, the way it's been, the system they used had a percentage on it now, and now they're going to this cut rate where it's flat, just like everybody else. I'm all for it.
I thought we were going the other way. That's why.
That's why I know, when I was telling you, just wait till we get to it.
Sorry.
They're gonna
I'm trying to jump
I
the
just
gun.
wanted you to know that.
But, and also the agreements with the city ordinances, with what Abilene has to offer, and we'll put into this also with what these guys are also asking about. Such church services as boots on the ground, other churches in the Abilene area that do the voluntary work. Usually the church ends up going ahead and putting in a permit for it. Yes, they're a church organization, and they can still put a permit in for it, you know, and take care of that for the customer, or for their person that's in need. But anything that's under 5 squares of material is considered a repair, and it's a wash, they don't even care about it.
Very good.
So, do we need anything in here for doing, like you say, repair work, or is that not?
I think that, the repair work, we don't charge, no.
We don't do that already.
Okay,
This is for if you're replacing your roof.
okay. Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to pass the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
No, second.
Okay, motion by Councilman White and a second by Councilwoman Jolly. All those in favor? Passes unanimously with Mr. Mann abstaining. Okay, that moves us to our,
Somebody go get Mr. Mann.
that moves us to our executive session, I believe.
So I guess he's gonna be announced or whatever when y'all get ready to do with that.
So,
ordinance.
as mentioned when we were discussing the ordinance, it's $50 for residential, like $65 for residential, $100 for commercial.
Since that ordinance passed, I will pull that out tomorrow and post it up on our city website and on our Facebook page so that you'll be able to see it,
Okay.
just so you can read it. the
I
way
didn't
it
know
is.
if the percentage was already written in your preliminary there, or if that was something.
No,
you
the
could-
proposed ordinance was to get rid of the percentage and to go with the flat
Flat
Okay.
rate.
Okay, that's what you're changing to.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So that brings us to 10.0, executive session. We convene into closed meeting pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes, annotated in accordance with the authority contained in Government Code 551.074, personnel matters concerning the city administrator position. Government Code 551.072, deliberation about real property concerning the purchase agreement from DAPDI. And Government Code 551.071, consult with attorney concerning the sanctuary city for the unborn. We are in the executive session.
Excuse me.
Were you the one on Shaney Lane?
How you doing?
Doing all right, Mark. Director, you doing all right?
Just fine.
That's my bad, so sorry.
I knew what you were getting at, and I was trying to.
Mr. White? Maybe to the restroom?
Yeah, he
Probably the
did. He did
restroom.
go to the restroom.
You could tell me that, but you couldn't tell me. I understand.